This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Okay, so this is a true story. I met the dev team for Deep Rock Galactic when I was at E3 2017. We were standing in the queue to go into the Xbox press conference and we started chatting and they said, oh yeah, we're about to reveal our game during the show. And I'm like, that's kind of a big deal, right? And they're like, yeah, I guess it is. That's a true story. They were 6 people back then working on the game, and since that time their studio has grown to some 20 people, and they just released their game into version 1.0 last week after being in early access for years. I've never once played this game. In fact, other than what I saw in that showcase, I'd never even seen the game. The only thing I knew about Deep Rock Galactic is that it had dwarves in it and it was universally beloved. This game has a 96% positive rating on Steam, making it the 93rd highest rated game on the platform. Steam has over 30,000 games, so that puts Deep Rock in the top 0.0031% of games on Steam. That's not too bad. So last week, I bought it, I booted it up, and I've dropped about 40 hours into it. Did it live up to the hype? Yeah, I'd say it did. Deep Rock Galactic is an incredibly simple game to explain. You play as one of 4 classes of miner, each with their own weapons and utility tools, and you have to mine stuff: gold, alien eggs, weird red crystal stuff. Then you drop it into a minecart and then you go home. That's it. That's the game. That's the review. 10 out of 10. Deep Rock is a co-op shooter in the traditional Left 4 Dead sense, where the focus isn't on min-max builds or complex progression paths or long-tail live service monetization. It's just about having fun with your friends. It isn't about precise, tactical, balanced gameplay. It's about having adventures. Actually, yes, that's it. That's exactly what Deep Rock Galactic is. It's an adventure simulator. You're like those dwarves from The Hobbit, and you're going to the Misty Mountain to score some gold, and along the way you'll drink and be merry and get lost and fall down, and your friends will help you get up, and you'll fight hard and you'll work together, and in the end you'll bring back a mighty haul and you'll drink some more. That's Deep Rock Galactic, and I think that's why people love it so much. But let's not gloss over its accomplishments. Getting to the point where you can create this experience for players isn't easy, and the dev team have shown tremendous insight and vision with the choices they've made. By far and away, the most impressive aspect of Deep Rock Galactic are the spaces you'll be exploring. Deep Rock's levels are all procedurally generated. No 2 caverns are alike. In fact, no 2 caverns are even close to being alike. Games like Warframe or Diablo use tile sets and combine them together in different ways, which means that, yeah, no 2 levels are the same, but they always kind of feel the same. Deep Rock's levels never, ever feel the same. Like, they just don't even come close to the same. In 40 hours, I've never once had that moment of like, oh yeah, I think I've seen this before. You could have one level that's a gigantic, windy, snake-like foreverness. The next could be biomes of different shapes and sizes connected by short or long stretches. The next could be a singular massive cavern that would take you 2 to 3 minutes to walk the circumference of. And all of these different possibilities can be combined with one another. I remember I was walking through a regular level with some typical biomes, a few connecting tunnels. It was all unique, but it wasn't stand out versus everything else I'd seen to that point. And then I came to this part. This cavern was like the Hall of the Mountain King. This thing was so large that I couldn't see the top, and so wide that I couldn't see all sides at once. It was just so profoundly, awe-inspiringly massive, and you walk through it and you're like, whoa. And then you remember that all of this is procedurally generated, and you're like, whoa. And then you realize that your system is still maintaining an absolutely rock-solid frame rate, despite the fact that the internal space just multiplied by a factor of 50, and you're like, how? Deep Rock's procedural generation is a technological marvel that feeds the sense of exploration and adventure that is core to this game. Every time I shoved off from my castle in the sky, I had a genuine sense of excitement about what I'd find below. I was excited to stumble upon the dirt patches, which are the dividers between the biomes, and as I chipped away at them, I'd think, ooh, I wonder what's on the other side of this one. And as I tossed my flare out to sea, I'd madly dash to follow it, practically tripping over myself to see what lay in store for me next. I'm not exaggerating, I really did feel this way. Earlier this year, I played Subnautica for the first time. The sense of discovery in that game, it stays with you. You don't forget how you felt the first time you discovered a new biome, but at the end of the day, Subnautica is static and finite and it ends. Deep Rock's sense of discovery isn't quite as striking as that, but the flip side is that it doesn't end. It just keeps coming at you as you dive deeper and deeper. But I don't want to create the impression that Deep Rock is just this zen-like exploratory experience. I mean, it's also kind of like this. Deep Rock Galactic is a co-op shooter that's mostly about having good times with your friends. The game can be played single player absolutely flawlessly in fact. There's a little A2 bot who accompanies you when you're solo and they'll help you mine things and shoot stuff. It works surprisingly well, so yeah, you can have a really good time playing this game solo, but you can have like 20 times more fun if you play with other people. Most of this relates to class design. There are 4 classes in the game and each bring unique utility to a dig. There's a gunner who brings a lot of firepower as well as a zipline launcher, allowing you and your team to cross huge spaces as the crow flies. There's the scout who can grapple quickly across caverns and light them up, making it easier to see. There's the engineer who can build platforms for people to stand on, as well as defensive turrets. And finally, there's the driller who can, yeah, he can drill things. The first thing you need to know about Deep Rock is that absolutely everything is destructible. There isn't a single square inch of the map that you can't take apart with your pickaxe. That gives the developers a huge amount of freedom with their procedural generation algorithm, because they can put mineable material pretty much anywhere they want, even at the highest point in the center of a huge cavern. At the end of the day, you can just dig a hole through the ceiling to get there. There is nowhere you cannot eventually reach or fall from. The best part about working as a team is that you don't need to dig all these unnecessary holes. You can have your gunner build a zipline across a chasm, your engineer build a platform on a wall, your scout grapple up to it, or you can just have your driller do some demolition work. Working together to overcome these traversal challenges is one of the most satisfying parts of Deep Rock, and the good news is that you can enjoy this stuff even if you don't have friends to play with, because the matchmaking and communication options are second to none. Firstly, you've got a full list of missions you can select from, and you can host either public or private digs. If it's public, someone will eventually join you. I've started dozens of solo digs, and I've never once finished a dig solo because people always drop in during a mission to help me complete it. These people are joining my dig through the server browser, where they can filter based on mission type or difficulty or server proximity, so they can make sure they have a good strong connection. They can see which classes are already on the dig, so they can select a class that complements the team, and in seconds they're being dropped in. The loading times in this game, by the way, oh my god, I don't understand how they did this. This is how long it takes to get into a mission in Deep Rock. Given the size of some of these levels, the fact that they load this quickly is pretty wild. When you're in the mission, Deep Rock has a rather brilliant contextual pinging system. You can tell your teammates that you've located a specific mineral, you can request platforms, highlight enemies to be killed, or just yell out for them to follow you. There's voice comms built in, but you really don't need to talk to get the job done. The ping system is more than enough. One of the things that I appreciate most about Deep Rock is how effortless its cooperation feels. As soon as you drop in, you'll immediately start working together. Even if you're completely new to the game, you'll still find some way to help out your team. It's almost instinctive because of how well the game has been designed. And with a community as wholesome and positive and supportive as Deep Rock's, this collaboration hits you right in the feels. I've played solo my whole way through, and I've met dozens of really nice, really chatty people who provided both helpful advice and good banter. Deep Rock's community is a definite highlight. So there's one part of Deep Rock that I don't love, and oddly enough, it's the combat, but it's not that big a deal for me, so let me explain why. Combat represents about 30% of the Deep Rock experience. 70% of the time, you'll just be exploring caves, mining stuff, falling to your death, the usual. But 30% of the time, you'll be shooting enemies. Some of this will happen while you're mining, so just a small collection of enemies will come and hassle you. Mostly it will be at specific points in the mission where mission control alerts you that a swarm is incoming. In these moments you have to group up with your squad and take down 5 or 6 thick waves of enemies. There's also a lot thrown at you towards the end of a mission when you're trying to make your escape. Each class has 2 weapons, a primary and a secondary, as well as a grenade. Weapon handling, gun design, etc. It's all fine. It's definitely not standout. It doesn't feel particularly great to fire these weapons, but nor does it feel bad. It just works. The big issues I think are enemy design, enemy variety, and audio design. Firstly, enemies are a little bit annoying to fight. The standard ant type enemy is fine, but the little versions of those are just sort of too little, and they kind of scurry around your feet like pretty much every enemy in Fallout 76. The big ones take reduced damage from the front, so you need to move around behind them to damage them. The flying enemies can pick you up and drop you from pretty much anywhere, and unless you have a very specific perk to stop this from happening, there is nothing you can do when this happens. I mean, watch this. These frustrations are compounded by how few enemy types there are. You're really fighting the same 2 to 3 enemy types about 80% of the time. The other 2 or 3 enemy variants are pretty rare, meaning that combat starts to feel rather repetitive in a way that the exploration and mining never does. The worst part though is the audio design. Oh my god. Okay, so every enemy in the game can crawl on walls, which means they can come from any direction at any time. What this means is that you'll be exploring or digging or whatever when all of a sudden this happens. So in these clips, I had no idea that these enemies were anywhere near me until they started hitting me. And then it's this frantic process of looking around for where I'm being hit from because they can hit me from literally any direction. This all could have been avoided if the enemies had proper audio cues to alert the player. There are some audio cues here, absolutely, but they're really inconsistent. A lot of the time when you're playing Deep Rock, you won't know that an enemy is near you until you get hit by that enemy, and that really starts to piss you off. Now, I don't want to paint too negative view of the combat though. I've had plenty of moments where I did enjoy combat, particularly when the team worked together to make the most of their unique class kits. I loved it when a swarm was called and the scout would like throw out his flare to light up the whole cavern. I love helping the engineer build his turrets in preparation for an assault. Here, our driller carved out a spot around this point that we had to defend, making it way easier for us to hold our ground. The gunner can put zip lines above these positions so you can be suspended in mid-air, out of reach of the enemies while you're raining down fire. In these moments, Deep Rock feels like Aliens when the squad goes into that power reactor and Bill Paxton's like, "They're coming out of the walls, man." It feels really good. But for me, these moments where absolutely everything is clicking perfectly are rare, and I'm just left feeling a little bit meh about the combat. To be honest though, that doesn't really faze me in the slightest because of how I choose to play. There are 5 difficulties on offer here, and I play at the 2nd or 3rd lowest difficulty most of the time. I do this not because the game is hard, but because I don't play the game for the combat, and the combat happens way less at these lower difficulty tiers. So I just go through those brief combat sections quickly, and I have an absolute blast doing everything else. A lot of people will say that Deep Rock is a co-op shooter, and yes, totally, it definitely falls into that category. It is a co-op shooter, but I prefer to refer to it as a co-op exploration game, a co-op mining game, a co-op adventure game. The shooting is, I think, the least impressive part of what is a spectacularly impressive package. You probably have some more specific questions about the overall structure and flow of Deep Rock, so let's answer those now. One of the most striking features of the game is just how open and accessible its parts are. As soon as you arrive in your space station, you'll get given an assignment, which is just a requirement to complete a certain set of missions. You'll complete them, you'll come back, you'll repeat the process 8 or 9 times, and then pretty much the whole game is open to you. You can go wherever you like on the map and load up any mission you like. As you level up, your class will unlock customization options for your weapons and armor. Later on, you'll unlock a higher difficulty tier as well as weekly missions called deep dives, which award endgame currencies used for weapon customization. But yeah, it's not like you play this game and you need to work for 20 or 30 hours to get to the good stuff. What you do in hour 1 is basically the exact same thing that you do at hour 30 or at hour 300. The game isn't interested in dragging out the player experience through bottleneck progression gateways. It's just like, here it is, play almost any part of it you want, go have fun. As I played through Deep Rock Galactic, I got a sense that this is what live service games could have been like if developers hadn't completely ruined that concept. This is a game that is meant to be played for a really long amount of time, but not because you're led by the nose with artificially inflated difficulty or progression gating or FOMO, but because you want to play it, because it's fun to play it. It has a progression structure that is so easily monetizable, but it's all free. There are 2 DLC cosmetics packs, but they're a tiny sliver of the total pool of cosmetics, the rest of which are all free to earn. Deep Rock Galactic feels like a live service game if the developer actually delivered all of the promised content on day one, and then they forgot to monetize it. Honestly, it feels like a sliding doors moment for video games, like peering into a parallel universe where this is how things could have been if greedy publishers had used the live service model for good instead of evil. I just want to be really clear though that this open slather, buffet style content approach won't work for everyone. A lot of people really crave a structured form of progression that gives them something to work towards. They really value big, meaty achievement milestones. Deep Rock certainly has these, but they aren't the focus of the game. I've seen plenty of people say, I really liked Deep Rock, but then I quickly got bored of it. And I can understand that because, as I've said, Hour 1 and Hour 300 are essentially the same. To me, Deep Rock is the perfect game to play while you're watching Rick and Morty episodes on your second monitor. It's perfect to play if you have some mates over voice chat and you're just chatting away. It's perfect to play if you just want to relax and mindlessly kill some time. Deep Rock has an almost retro feel to it because it's a video game that's just designed to be played. It's not tense PvP battles or raid bosses with endless health or exhausting progression paths you slowly grind through. It's just a good old-fashioned video game to be played for the sheer fun of it. And in 2021, I am more than okay with that. I want to finish by talking about the greatest movie in the history of cinema. You all know the one I'm talking about, of course. That's right, Armageddon. Science has confirmed on multiple occasions that this is the only perfect film in existence, so it has much to teach us as we continue to unravel its genius. Armageddon is the story of a group of miners who get shot out of a rocket to do some mining on a hostile alien environment. Deep Rock Galactic is of course the video game adaptation of Armageddon, except they had to replace Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck and Steve Buscemi with dwarves due to licensing restraints. Like Armageddon, Deep Rock Galactic isn't about the mission, it's about the characters. I'm not joking when I say this. I love these dwarves. They're the best. They are goddamn heroes, every one. I want to have beers with these blokes in real life, and the knowledge that I can't makes me sad. Deep Rock Galactic's most impressive technical feature is its procedural generation, but its most impressive feature overall is just how much personality and charm is bursting from every inch of it. From the space station, which somehow feels both technologically advanced and lo-fi homely. It's the ability to go drinking at the bar with your mates and cheers one another, and the dancing, the dancing. It's the fact that when you hit that emote button, you're yelling rock and stone with such excitement and fervor that it's infectious. I guarantee you that when you play this game, you will be in the shower yelling rock and stone because it just feels good. Like there was this one instance where we discovered this compressed mineral, and at that point everyone just stopped what they were doing just to celebrate. Like just watch.
Rock on! We're rich! Attention!
This was the game at that point. This was the most important thing we could be doing, just standing around celebrating. That's Deep Rock Galactic. It's this positivity, it's this fun, it's this excitement, it's just this yelling rock and stone thing that you just can't help but be swept up in. That's the game. It's not the shooting, it's the emoting. And it's very good and you should totally buy it and play it, and I hope you love it. If you're finding yourself with a little bit of free time on your hands these days, you may want to check out Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. On Skillshare, millions of members come together to find inspiration and take the next step in their creative journey. This isn't just about looking up how to use your new camera, this is about saying, I want to become a photographer. Skillshare's online learning courses are put together by experts experts in their fields, and taking part in these courses allows you to connect directly with those creators and with other students. You get to build a community around the thing that you're passionate about, supercharging your ambition and creativity. I got started on a platform very similar to this, and 4 or 5 years later, here I am now on YouTube doing my thing. I really recommend this stuff to you. To get started, click the link in the description below, and as an added bonus, the first 1,000 people who click the link get 2 months of Skillshare Premium free. Thanks Skillshare for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.